music here. Usually it's just me attempting to make a fool of myself with this here guitar. An ex-husband, ex-wife are in court, fighting in a bitter custody battle over their child. And the judge asks the woman, "Why do you feel you deserve custody?" And the woman replies, "I brought this child into the world. My child literally came out of me, and that's why I deserve custody." And the judge nods his head and says, "This is simple and logical reason, and it makes sense." Then the judge turned to the man, the husband, and said, "She said her side of things. Why don't you feel free to express why you deserve custody?" And the man sits in his chair, slowly drinking from a can of soda. And then he holds up the empty can in his hand and says, "Was this my soda or my wife's soda?" Confused, the judge says, "I believe it was your soda." And the wife also confused, and the judge looks over at her and says, "Was that your soda?" And the ex-wife says, "No, it was his soda." And the man looked at the judge and says, "Well, we all agree. So when I put the money in the soda machine and the soda pops out, it's mine, and not the Coke machine's, correct?" Well, I was thinking about war and history and all of that thing, philosophy and Hegel and different people. Victor's Right with Invisible Ink, the history books between the wars. Now, you've heard me say this before, informing what we never learned from history itself, facts and non-facts, neither thesis nor antithesis. Maybe a synthesis, truths of non-truths, and the tragedies in between, rights of wrongs and conflicting hopes. We're us slaves to our own ignorance, who are never free, as we endure the weakness of our struggles, in between the blood and guts of the wars we fight, in this alienated history book of divided pages, where the victors write with invisible ink. Those were the things that I was thinking about Hegel and philosophy and war. My mate was surprised to hear that I actually enjoyed the punishment of him making me sleep on the sofa. I said it made me feel like I was camping out with a really angry bear, somebody close by. I remember when I was camping in the Rockies, and I was in a tent by myself, and my girlfriend was in the van because there was bears about. And her son and a friend were sleeping in another tent. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, I heard something brushing against the tent, and I just figured it was those young guys playing a prank on me. But in the morning, they informed me there was a bear roaming around the campsite. Now, a friend of mine gave me 2 beautiful silk ties for my birthday, and later in the evening, we went out for dinner. And I was wearing one of the ties, of course, just to show some approval. And he took one look at me and said, "You didn't like the other tie, Hairman?" Oh, you can't win for losing, I'm telling you. Now, a recently divorced couple were in court, battling over the custody of their child. Now, this is the kind of court logic that makes no sense to me, but then sometimes it's good for a laugh and a giggle. Battling over the custody of the child, the mother spoke first, ranting and raving about how terrible her ex-husband was as a father. He was a drunk and a drug addict and, well, just about everything else. And the judge asked the father if he had any comments, and the father simply replied, "If I placed a quarter in a gumball machine, who gets to keep the candy, me or the gumball machine?" Like I said yesterday, that works better on an electric guitar. This here is just an acoustic. like me, I'm just an acoustic. Recently, well, I told you that, didn't I? Yeah, you're very redundant here, man. Get on with the shoe. Within the pages of our past lies a story that was meant to last. But the victors wrote with invisible ink, leaving us with missing links pretty near the brink. And between the wars, the truth got lost. And now we pay the mighty cost. The history books, they tell us lies, informing what we never realized. Facts of non-facts, twisted tales, a synthesis of truth, non-truths unveiled. Neither thesis nor antithesis, this be just a twisted version of a reality. We're slaves to our own ignorance, never breaking free from the grasp. The history books, yeah, they tell us lies, informing us what we never realize, facts of non-facts, twisted tales, a synthesis of non-truths unveiled. In between the tragedies and pain, we're caught in a never-ending chain. Conflicting hopes of right and wrong, but we're still singing the same old song. The history books, they tell us lies, forming us what we never realize, facts of non-facts and twisted tales, a synthesis of truths, non-truths unveiled. And as we endure the weakness of our struggles, in between the blood and guts of war we rumble, in the alienated history book of divided pages, victors write with invisible ink, leaving us an endless fight, and the fools marched into war. Oh, you better end this with some kind of funny. Oh, I'll tell you about the KBG guy. There's a KBG agent, and he goes to the library and sees an old Jewish man reading a book. He says, "What are you reading, old fella?" "I'm learning Hebrew, comrade," replies the old Jewish gentleman. And the KBG agent asks, "Are you learning Hebrew for what in the world? You know it takes years to get permission to travel to Israel. You will die before you get one." "I'm learning Hebrew for when I go to heaven, so I can speak to Moses and Abraham," replied the old gentleman. "How do you know you're going to heaven? What if you go to hell?" asked the KGB agent. "I already know Russian," he replied. Now, when it comes to the New Testament, I only believe 12.5% of that Bible. I guess that makes me an atheist.